Traders Corner is proudly brought to you by IG Markets South Africa. Visit igmarkets.co.za.
Welcome back to Traders Corner, the show for novice and professional traders alike. As always, I'm joined by Garth McKenzie, who is, of course, the founder and editor of Traders Corner. Garth, welcome.
Hi, Julieta.
Garth, the incredible power of television means that even as this is going out on air, you're actually kicking back with a beer in your hand after a hard day's fishing.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going up to the Zambezi, going fishing for a week. So this show is pre-recorded. And what we're going to do this week, since I'm not here to do the normal market analysis that we would ordinarily do, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a book review and look at some of the really good trading books that I think a lot of traders should consider buying. And as we approach the Christmas season, and it's September, so I suppose you're going to very soon see Christmas decorations in the shops, start considering this, and the books that we're going to talk about this evening. Most of them are difficult to get in South Africa, so it's an idea to maybe order them from overseas.
Okay. I see you have quite a pile there. So let's start with the top one. It's a book called Trading in the Zone, and it's by a chap called Mark Douglas.
Yes.
Tell us what this book's about.
Yeah, there's two of them that I've got by Mark Douglas. The first one is Trading in the Zone, and then the other one is The Disciplined Trader. Now, The Disciplined Trader was the one that he actually wrote first, and it was written quite a long time ago. If I'm not wrong, I think it might have even been written in the 80s or early 90s. And then Trading in the Zone came along later as a sequel to the book. But both of them are excellent books in terms of trading psychology and just getting your head around what it takes to be a successful trader. They are both quite chewy reads. It's certainly not bedtime reading. They're the type of books that I find I had to really sort of sit down and concentrate and work through them chapter by chapter. But the content in here is really, really excellent. To me, these are two of the best trading books around in terms of trading psychology.
Which is very important for traders. It's a matter of, as much as anything, risk management, stop losses, the psychology and how you approach your trades is,
absolutely.
Is almost 50%, I suppose, of the success or failure.
Yeah, I think even more than 50. I think, in the book somewhere, I think he reckons that it's up to 80% of your success as a trader is determined by the psychological aspects of it. All your methodology, your charts and analysis and all of that other stuff is obviously important, but it's how you tie it together, and it's the psychological aspect of trading that really will determine whether you're successful or not. And he goes into a number of the challenges that we faced with as traders and why it is difficult. I mean, the reality is that 95% of people that attempt trading are unsuccessful. And he goes into that in great depth, why that is the case and how you can overcome those psychological challenges to actually become a successful trader.
Have you found those tips pretty useful? Have you been able to change your behavior as a trader?
Yes.
Having read these two books?
They have been phenomenal in my career as a trader. I've read both of these books a couple of times each, and I always find them good to go back to when I've got a bit of time on my hands and take a bit of a break to actually go back and read those books. The lessons in there are fantastic, and reading them just to focus the mind and get the psychology right has really helped me in my career.
Okay. You've got another book there called Technical Analysis Explained by a fellow called Martin Pring.
Yeah.
That also looks like a fairly weighty tome.
Yeah, it is. This is also not bedtime reading. But this has obviously it's got more pictures in it. The pictures are...
Oh, good. Always like pictures.
The pictures are charts and patterns in the market and so on. It's a very, very good all-encompassing book on technical analysis. Viewers of this show will know that most of the trades that we do on this show are based off of technical analysis. And this is really a great book. On the back here it actually says the original and still #1 technical analysis answer book. And I think that sums it up. It really is a great all-encompassing technical analysis book. Good idea for traders who like the technical analysis side of things to get this book. It does go into the concepts in a relatively simple way, and it explains to you how they work and why they work. And it's a great reference book to have as a trader if you're into technical analysis.
And even if you're not into technical analysis, if you look at purely fundamental factors, would you say though that something like that is pretty useful?
I think it is useful. The thinking behind technical analysis is that it is a tool to measure market psychology. And if you think about what drives prices in the market in the short term anyway, it's psychology and it's sentiment. Yes, the fundamentals ultimately win out in the long term, but what drives pricing in the short term is market psychology. It's you and me and every other trader out there who collectively makes up the psychology of the market. And technical analysis is a great tool for measuring that collective psychology of the market. So yes, whether you're a fundamental trader or a technical trader, I still think that the technicals always are very, very useful to have as a tool to guide you in your trading.
And certainly when people are talking about stochastic oscillators and candlestick patterns, they will know what one is referring to, having read this book.
Correct.
Okay, the next one, getting started in options. That sounds like somewhat more advanced trading strategies.
Yeah, I've put this one in this time because obviously we've done some options strategies on the show this year. The regular viewers will know we've done some put spread option structures. And I get a lot of questions from viewers asking for a greater explanation about how these options work. It's very difficult on a 15-minute TV show like this to explain in detail how options work, because they are quite intricate and they are quite complex products. But this is a good book for viewers that are interested in that are interested in options. Getting Started in Options by what's his name, Michael Tomset. Yeah. So it's a great book as a reference book to get started in options, to understand what a call option is, what a put option is, how you can buy an option and how you can short an option, and how the premium payoffs work, and then how you can overlay different strategies against each other to create different hedging mechanisms, and so on. So it's a good book for those viewers that have been interested in the put spread structures that we've done on the show this year and would like to learn more about options. This is a good place to start. It's quite a good reference book. Once again, it's not bedtime reading. It's quite
Unless,
quite
of course,
meaty.
you want to send yourself to sleep fairly rapidly, I imagine.
I suppose it could be a good cure for insomnia if this type of stuff doesn't interest you. Yes, but it's a good book if you want to get an understanding of options. But it is quite a chewy read. Certainly something you'd need to put your head down and concentrate through.
And presumably that also, I imagine, as with all these books, not necessarily easily available in bookshops. You'd probably have to order them.
No, you see, these types of books are all quite specialized, so you're unlikely to just waltz into Exclusive Books or any other bookstore and find it on the shelf. So you'd need to order these in from overseas, and the pricing on them varies. You know, I would say that you're unlikely to be spending more than 500 Rand on any one of these individual books. It is quite a lot of money, but also it's a hugely important investment to make in yourself as a trader. I mean, all of these books have cost me a bit of money, but very much money well spent, without a doubt.
Okay, the next one is the Stock Traders Almanac. I know you get such things as a Gardener's Almanac, so I'm quite curious as to what this one's about.
Yeah, this is a slightly older one. This is from 2009. But what this is, it's a book that's published every year. And what it does is it goes back and it looks back at historical trends in the markets and historical patterns that seem to reoccur over and over and over. And it's a very interesting book. You know, it comes out with interesting statistics like what typically happens to the stock market during an election year in the US. Or, you know, some traders might have heard of the January effect, that if January is a positive month, then the rest of the year also ends up being a positive year. And then there are various public holidays in the US and what typically happens in the week leading up to those public holidays and after. And it's quite interesting. I mean, it's obviously not it's not completely foolproof, but it's very interesting to notice the patterns, and it gives the statistical reliability of all of those patterns that seem to have repeated themselves over and over and over again in the market. So it's quite a nice one to have. As I say, it's published every year, so try and get yourself the one for the end of 2012, I guess. All the statistics build on themselves year after year.
Right, so that's the Almanac. Looks pretty interesting. What about Market Wizards? Now, this is sort of the old favorite classic trading book, isn't it? The Bible.
It is. Absolutely. I mean, these are Market Wizards written by Jack Schwager. Absolutely classic traders books, and there's a number of them in the series. This was the first one that he ever wrote, called Market Wizards, and he subsequently wrote New Market Wizards and Stock Market Wizards, and now there's a brand new one out which is called Hedge Fund Wizards, which I know I'll probably have that on my Christmas wish list for this year. What these books are really is Jack Schwager goes out and he interviews some of the world's greatest traders of all time, and asks them questions, where they came from, where they started, what interesting experiences they've had through the years as traders, and what methods do they use, etc., etc. And it's fascinating. It's quite easy reading. This, I would say, you can consider to be bedtime reading. The interviews are, you know, published like chapters, so I suppose you're looking at maybe 10 to 20 pages per interview with each and every trader. But they really are fascinating reads. Once I got my hands onto these Market Wizards books, I really couldn't put them down. And I think if you haven't read them as a trader, it really is a great place to start, because it's honest, raw trading experiences by some of the world's great traders and their lives as traders. And as I say, there is a new one out called Hedge Fund Wizards, which I'm certainly going to be wanting to buy for myself this year.
Right. So that's the Trading Bible. Interesting that you've chosen this next book, because it's more of a historical account, but I'm sure people have actually read Nick Leeson's account of how he brought down Barings Bank as almost a how-to.
Yeah, these next two books are more sort of story books. They're obviously based on true stories, but they're fascinating reads for anyone that's got an interest in the financial markets and in trading. And this one I put here because it's all about Nick Leeson, and he's obviously famously known as being the guy that cost Barings Bank £1 billion back in the mid-90s, and that was enough at that stage to basically sink Barings Bank. And obviously over the years now we've had guys that have done even greater things than Nick Leeson in terms of losing lots of money.
Jerome Kerviel from SocGen, I'm sure he'll be putting out a book fairly shortly.
I would imagine so. He did €5 billion for SocGen, but he didn't sink the bank. But this is a fascinating and famous story of Nick Leeson's, and it's all really about option structures that went wrong and how he sank the bank. It's a great one to read. Again, if for viewers that like the option strategies that I put on the show and are interested in that type of thing, this is a fascinating read. It's another book that once I got my hands on it, I really couldn't put it down. Brilliant story, and it's based on a true story. I think also just important to note that there might be some misconception out there that trading those option strategies that I do on the show are somewhat risk-free, and that it certainly is not the case. If you don't know how to manage the risk and you get too aggressively leveraged and too clever with these things, they can be exceptionally dangerous. And this is a story about how Nick Leeson built an option structure that went wrong, and it basically sank the oldest bank in the world.
There are also a couple of books, and you haven't brought them along, a chap called Michael Lewis who wrote Liar's Poker and The Big Short fairly recently. And I remember seeing comments of his. Liar's Poker was about his time at Salomon Brothers, as I recall. How people actually read the book and thought, and he wrote it as a precautionary tale against trading and against Wall Street and the corruption that he saw evident in Wall Street. And people read the book and thought, I want to be a trader. And he said it basically got the entirely wrong message across. So I'm not quite sure if Nick Leeson possibly did the same thing there.
He might have. Interestingly, that book was also made into a movie as well, and quite a good movie at that.
With Ewan McGregor, I recall that. Then your last book there, When Genius Failed.
Yeah, When Genius Failed. Now this is a book about long-term capital management, and some viewers might remember that from the late 90s. It was sort of in 1998. And these guys also effectively almost collapsed the financial system in the US with bond trades and structures that went very wrong.
And these were the guys who invented the Black-Scholes method.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Options pricing.
The back of the book says a group of elite investors who called themselves long-term capital management believed they could beat the market and, like alchemists, create limitless wealth for themselves and their partners. In fact, they created $1 trillion hole in the international banking system. It's a tale of vivid characters, overweening ambition, and perilous drama told in Roger Lowenstein's hands with brilliant style and panache. It's a fascinating read as well about how long-term capital management failed and collapsed and lost billions, trillions of dollars. Again, another book that I couldn't put down once I got my hands on it. So again, it's a story. It's based on a true story. This, I suppose, does count as bedtime reading. It's certainly a lot lighter and it's easier reading than some of the other books here. But if you're into that type of thing, you're into stock market stories and history, it's a great one to read.
Okay. Well, you've put together quite a reading list for the December holidays. Garth, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us.
Thanks.
That's Garth McKenzie, the founder and editor of Traders Corner.
Traders Corner was proudly brought to you by IG Markets South Africa. Trade the South Africa 40 Index or over 140 share CFDs at just 0.2% commission on our intuitive, award-winning online platform. Visit igmarkets.co.za to find out more.